How to price your MVP, part 4. I know I said I was going to end this series at part 3, but you can't get rid of me so easily. Just kidding. Actually, I didn't plan on doing this one, but after meeting with a founder going through this exact same situation in terms of an MVP launch, I thought this is a great time to, while it's fresh, record this lesson, because how to price and when to start selling your MVP is a really important decision. And I'm just going to give you the spoiler alert, too long did not read version. Start selling as soon as you can. And the reason for that is the feedback you should trust the most is sales. That's the best metric. That's the best, growth traction metric is sales, money coming through the door, because once people part with their money, then you've got a customer. Up until then, you don't know if you've got a customer or not. Now, obviously, you might have a startup that is not about making money, and therefore you're going to be generating an audience and things like that. But I'm talking about the startups that you can generate revenue, not audience building startups, which there are so many audience building startups that even if you're in a model that you could be giving away stuff for free, try to sell something anyway, see what happens, because adding that revenue stream could be a fantastic innovation for what you're putting together. So the feedback you trust the most is sales, and the best feedback you'll ever get is after you tell them your price. Think about it for a second. You have your SaaS platform, and you say it's $15,000. And if their jaw hits the floor and they got sticker shock, well, guess what? You got some feedback. Feedback, you don't know where it's going or how to necessarily interpret it, but at least you've got a data point to figure out if you're headed in the right direction or not. So it may be you're not communicating enough, or there's not enough features, or it doesn't really solve the problem, what have you. And let's say you tell them your price is $15,000, and they just their eyes raise kind of in surprise, and they look at you like they're robbing your pension fund, or they're robbing robbing the money that your grandmother left you in her inheritance or something like that. Then you've got another data point. Wait a second. Maybe we're pointed in the right direction. I'm just not seeing it yet. And this is a really great signal as a confirmation. I know a founder who was shocked when she went out and surveyed her initial free users, because that's what we do. We want to give away for free to get users on board. And after she surveyed, she was shocked to have people say, yeah, I would have paid for this. I paid for this. This is the greatest thing ever. And for her, that was surprising. And then it was working with her to figure out the pricing, etc. So again, I know it's very tempting to give it away for free and then to ride off that, but then conditioning your user for free can be extremely detrimental to the future of startup. Let's take in a case in point, Groupon. When I was managing a motorsports store, we decided to use Groupon, and we found a really interesting phenomenon that our customers were conditioned to wait for the next Groupon. Like, we literally have people who would not rent. The promise was give them a Groupon and they're going to love it and they're going to keep renting from you. It didn't work that way, because the user base for Groupon, they would only buy if there was a deal. So Groupon, we took a bath on Groupon and decided not to use Groupon anymore. For other businesses, I'm sure it works, something where you get people in for like something that's just a regular purchase and what have you. But for us, when it was like seasonal and it was motorsports rental, literally people would say, well, they call and they say the price, and they'd say, well, what about the Groupon deal? And say that's over. They go, okay, well, wait, well, when are you releasing the next Groupon? Or we'll wait for the next Groupon. So not a good deal. So conditioning your users for free, well, unless you're an audience building product, that's not going to fly with investors, and that's not going to fly with your pocketbook, your bills. and everything like that, putting food on the table. So again, the feedback you trust the most is sales, and the best feedback you'll ever get is after you tell them your price. The feedback you trust most is sales. I believe I heard that on Shark Tank. I just want to attribute properly. And the best feedback you'll ever get is after you tell them a price, or from Michael Seibel at Y Combinator. So kudos to Barbara Corcoran, I think is the one. I'm sure she shared in other places. Anyways, I digress. Michael Seibel and Barbara Corcoran, thank you very much for giving me these quotes. All right, so let's explain how we're gonna figure out the pricing and when to sell this. And it's unfortunately, there's not one standard template model that everybody should use. Again, if I had all this in a formula, step by step, kind of like paint by numbers, I'd be super rich because everyone would have a successful startup. I don't. So let's look at, did you figure out whether it's good, fast, or cheap? And here's how you want to figure out the pricing and how to sell it and when to sell it. So I've got a founder and they have an online product that's kind of like a SaaS that provides content for users for them to use in their business, right? And so he's charging per seat, or he's trying to figure out how to, should I do annual pricing, entry pricing, is it a freemium product, what is it? General rule of thumb, and this is something that I picked up along the way, anything under, so if your product is priced $300, if your product is more than $300, you can afford human onboarding or sales. If it's less than $300, I think I'm doing this wrong here. If it's less than $300, you want to automate it. So you can make, like, let's say you charge $100 for your product, but you have to get on the phone and sell, all the time. You're not going to make any money, right? You'd rather sell something for $50 and get way more customers in and not have to have humans running the sales. Then that's the gold right there. Now, remember, higher price equals less churn. So there's price and then there's churn, which is how many users or customers you're losing per month, per week, per year, things like that. So it just makes sense. The higher ticket item, the more someone has to make a decision, probably the longer the sales cycle, the less they're going to churn later on. So just in general, think about these factors when you're looking at your price and go out and research. And when it comes to research, just because your competitors are pricing something a specific way doesn't mean you have to price it the same way, right? Like, for example, if you're in an industry where people are saying, oh, it's $1 and it's just known for it being cheap, and you go, well, it's $100, and they're like, what? It's $100. Let me tell you what the difference is. Same with the opposite way around. It's like, Dollar Shave Club type thing. Instead of going and spending $14, or I can't remember the last time I spent on a big pack of razors. I use electric now, but they said that, Dollar Shave Club, that was kind of like the signal that got people enticed into it. But $1 per month, and you get all the upsells and all those things, right? So if your price product is more than $300, you can have human onboarding and sales process. Anything under, you want to have automated, right? So that's a little pro tip for you, just to think about, the pricing. So now, when you're looking at good, fast, or cheap, so this founder that I'm talking about, he's got a product that is automatically fast. So it's fast because he's removed the friction from someone in the SaaS company having to do it themselves. So, or the company that's using their SaaS having to do it themselves. It saves, could be saving about 10 to 15 hours a month, and, all these costs and hard costs they'd be spending out of pocket just to solve this problem. So it's super fast, right? Super fast. Now he has a decision. Do I make it good or do I make it cheap? All right. So what happens is, and the MVP is already out there. Like he's got, users, and he is solving the problem, but he wants to know which direction to go in to start selling this bad boy. So good or cheap. Now, here's how it works. Say he wants to make it cheap. Let's say he prices this product at $1, and this is far from case, but just for example, he prices his product at $1, it's low margin, high volume. So he has to go out and reach 1 million people to use his product. Now, let's say he decides not to be cheap and his product is $1,000. Well, he only needs 1,000 users. Well, it better be really good. And so he might be in a situation where he gets people in. Now it's fast, but it's not going to be cheap, but you're going to get a fast product and it's going to be high quality. Now, cheap doesn't mean lower quality. It just may mean that your unit economics and what you're giving is not the same as the premium version. So a cheap version might be, well, he's just going to give really cheap, quick lessons. He's going to maybe knock down the production value just a little bit and have, like, you know, talking head versus animations and all that stuff. But it's still fast. So the SaaS, or as a SaaS, the user is getting something every day. It's fast and it's cheap. He's getting bite-sized stuff every single day. And again, the production quality is not there. Or if he goes good, then everybody has to wait. Even though it's fast, it removes the friction of the time. Friction in terms of time, and saves you time, which is dollars. Time is money. One product's going to come out and it's going to be super good every month, or every quarter there's a new line that comes out, etc. Right? And that's what you want to think about. Think about it in clothing. If you have a clothing line that is dropping new product every single week, there's not a scarcity. Like, you know, this is the new product that's coming out and it's just boom, 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 you know, it's coming out super fast. Or you have to wait for the spring collection, or there's an annual collection, annual drop, and everyone's in anticipation. I know this is a little outside of stars, but it gives you an idea. I know a furniture, he had a factory and he had this really unique way of bringing furniture over and basically replicating, you know, furniture like Ming Dynasty type traditional Chinese furniture. But he had this model where he put on a new show and it was every quarter. And so his furniture store had no retail. It was shut down for every 3 months, for 3 months. And then he'd have this one, you know, spring, summer show type thing, and winter collection. And there would be a lineup around his building. So that's what you want to figure out. Now, how does that apply to a SaaS model? Well, explain, you know, it's the exact same thing in terms of the customer interaction, but you want to figure out, okay, what are these good, fast, or cheap? And that's really going to determine what your pricing is going to be and how you're going to go about it. As I said in the last video, let me just explain this here. If you're going cheap, you want to 10x the value. So if someone would normally pay $10 for something a month, how can you get it to $1? And you say, Ed, that's impossible. Well, not necessarily impossible. Depends on the technology. If someone's used to paying that, charge them $1 to get in freemium model, and then, you know, upsell them the rest of the way, or automate it so much and go for higher volume, lower margin. This one, you want to go higher margin. You know, if you're in good, you want to go higher margin, lower volume, which extends your sales cycles, you know, etc. Again, I know this one company, what they did was they, like this architecture company, they were looking at their competition and they're trying to figure out how to become more of a startup. And so they said, okay, do we want to go fast and cheap, which is templated out, you know, people just come and pick their homes online. They don't have to talk to a salesperson, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Or do they invest in these tools where it's good and fast, where it's not cheap and it costs, like, you know, remember they were telling me the average pricing of a home that's sold in Aspen. And they said, you know, entire companies can live off of one sale for one home for the fees of that for the entire year, one sale per year. So their whole company was optimized with the software and the delivery and the marketing, everything like that, to sell one customer per year. If they had two, well, guess what? They were laughing. And that's what they were figuring out. So how do we go from one customer to customer, where the other model in the different place, they need to template out and use technology, communication, things like that. So now we're talking SaaS platform, but think about in terms of any B2C, some business or consumer facing app, or, you know, something like that. How can you just completely reduce price or make it free and make it fast? Now I'm hung up on this whole fast idea, but let's figure out, okay, what if you're good and cheap? Well, then it's not going to be fast. And these are models where, you get a price and quality, and then it's you get on a wait list, and the product doesn't go out to print until everything's ganged up, right? So there's software. I use these companies all the time where I need something customized and done. And then what happens is I get on a wait list until they sold enough to fill a run, and they have all the resources allocated. And then what happens is the price is absolutely fantastic. And so I'm willing to wait, right? And that's how that works. So as you figured out the identity of your MVP and your startup, you're going to know then what is the selling strategy and how to go out there and just, explain to your audience, your users, well, in this example, my product is good and it's extremely cheap. But then you kind of, drop the hammer and say, okay, then this is the reason we can give it to you good and cheap, because you have to get on a wait list. Those are the types of models that you can figure out, right? So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can go out there, but then cheap is going to really establish the pricing. Like I said, if you can go 10x value on the price, if you have good, then it's going to figure out, well, you can still give a 10x value, but let's say something is worth $100,000 to them. If you can figure out how to automate it, well, and sell for 10,000, but it's still, a much higher ticket price item. So then if it's good and the price is higher, you can get more into manual sales, right? So if the price is high, you can get into manual sales. So just remember these things. Now, I'm not talking about the manual sales that you do if you have a concierge style MVP. You still want to figure out, okay, you're going to lose money, but you're figuring out what the product is, right? So if you're like, oh, well, this would normally cost in an automated world where other people pay $100 for this thing, well then, and you have to deliver manual, do it manually, lose money on your hourly time, but know that eventually you're going to make sure that you automate it, right? And so don't worry about the unit economics, just figure out what zone you want to be in, good, fast, or cheap. Which two are you going to pick, and then how are you going to go to market, and that will help inform your decision making. You can always change the price. You can always raise the price as you go, or say, oh, we're doing really well, we're going to go basically, fast and cheap, or good and cheap, and we're going to lower the price and start throttling up your user acquisition. That's very possible as well. That's pricing optimization. You want to watch your metric, but how do you know how to adjust the pricing if you're not selling, if you're not charging money? That's the moral of this lesson, or the entire takeaway. If you do one thing, figure out how to get to charging money as fast as possible. And I've worked with founders where it is nerve-wracking for them to go, let's say they've got a free user and they've been working all the kinks in the MVP and that whole pricing conversation. And we can help you with that. To have that pricing conversation, one great way is to ask them, what would you pay, for something like this? As long as you let them know that they're on like some free trial and you want to work with them because they're helping you out and you're very grateful, but you can ask them, what would you pay for that? But I've had founders go just so nervous that they're going to lose the one even free user that they have, and they have the conversation and they say, guess what, I have my first paying user, and it's hooray and all that stuff. And it's super exciting, because not because you're making your $25, $50, or $100, even $10,000, but because you've got validation on your idea and the pricing, and you've got a data point on where to start. And that's where we want to get you to when it comes to the MVP. MVP is not just about problem, solution, fit. Does your product solve the problem that that the users want? But to get to product market fit, you have to figure out what is the pricing, and pricing is going to determine, do I do hand-to-hand combat and have a sales force, or do we do automated? Can we afford influencers? And all the unit economics you got to figure out, right there. But the best part is, once you start charging money, you can adjust for your unit economics. But again, I can't stress this enough. How do you know? how do you get there unless you have the data points of actually trying to sell and making money with your MVP? There's your bonus lesson. I'm pretty sure I'm done. I'm not going to promise anything anymore just in case, but I'm pretty sure I'm done and we're going to move into the next lessons. But let us know, office hours, everything's available to you to figure this whole thing out. And sometimes you just need a sounding board of an advisor or another founder to, talk this out and help you kind of get everything straight in your mind to make a decision. Thanks for being a founder with us. And again, hope this has been helpful. See you in the next video.